So, My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 333 has been translated, and let's just say that this chapter most likely has split the fandom once again. Some people hate it, some people love it. Me personally, I thought it was alright, and we'll talk a little bit more why I thought that right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my manga review for My Hero Academia, manga chapter 333, titled Ghost. Ooh. Wait 1 second. October was last month. This isn't the spooky season anymore. Well, you know, depending on who you are, it is the Christmas season because, you know, November, no one cares about Thanksgiving. So yeah, when it comes to this chapter of My Hero Academia, there was a fair amount that happened in it. We got the reveal of Star and Stripe's fate, and it will not shock you exactly what happened to her, but what will shock you is how she was able to deal with Shigaraki and All For One, because, yeah, that was a thing that some people predicted, but we also get to get a last hint at her character before we, quote-unquote, never see her again. Yeah, so before we do anything else, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Manga Man Drew. If you like to see this type of content, I do manga reviews, manga discussions, as well as talk about the spoilers whenever they come out. So if that's something that you're interested in, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And without the way, let's get right into the review. So this chapter actually starts off with a kind of like inner monologue or inner dialogue that we see within Shigaraki / All For One, where we have him thinking that this is New Order and how he never wanted One For All and New Order to work together. From what we get with these translations, he talks about how New Order and One For All are working together, but I think it's more implied that he didn't want them to come together, and how when it comes to his plan, he actually planned to get One For All first and then to get New Order, because he later explains that his goal of having people around the world is to cause havoc around the world to distract the global heroes so that he can focus on Japan, and how his main goal is to steal One For All because it's the crystallization of power, and that when he obtains New Order alongside that, it's not just Japan that's gonna fall, but the entire world. Which, you know what? This kind of makes sense, especially when we got the sort of hints of for what All For One's plan was, which was to pretty much take One For All from Deku, from whoever, and then go into his third part of his plan. We didn't know what that was, but because we know it now, and we saw that Star and Stripe was introduced in that same chapter, yeah, it kind of like ties into that idea that he wanted to go after One For All so that he can gain a lot more power that he thought that he would need it to go against Star and Stripe's New Order, which he took a gamble. His body wasn't fully complete, but the gamble pretty much paid off, because in this chapter, it is confirmed that he steals New Order. And I think this may be the first time that we've seen in the series of All For One actually using All For One that is not in the flashback. So we're actually getting to see how All For One works when it comes to taking an individual's quirk, and it kind of comes off of the individual in this type of aura. It's hard to distinguish whether or not it's actually the aura or the cloud, but later on in the next page, we see that, yeah, it's kind of this aura energy thing that he's able to suck through the holes in his fingers, and he confirms that he has taken New Order from Casey, but before her quirk is actually stolen, she actually tries to give a New Order that Kathleen Bate, will not decay. So, two things. One, we get her full name. Wow, we're getting a lot of information from Star and Stripe, from Kathleen Bate. I wonder if she's gonna die this chapter. I hope that's not the case, but there's no way that Hirokoshi would, I don't know, introduce a female character that the people fall in love with and then incredibly maim her within the next few chapters. Hirokoshi does not have a habit of doing that, does he? No. But yeah, the second most interesting thing about this is that she tried to create a New Order on herself before her quirk was completely taken, to the point where it prevents her from decaying. Unfortunately, that doesn't work out, because you see that the pilots are saying that she's an idiot, and how she comes to this realization that, oh, so this is the upper limit of my physical enhancement, because she realizes that she cannot prevent her body from decaying. So yeah, Hirokoshi, you have literally angered your audience once again by creating a wonderful character that so happens to be female and then killing and maiming her. Now, I'm not mad that he did this. I think it was pretty expected the moment that Shigaraki, all for one, touched her face that she was gonna die. And I accepted that fact, but I think that the reasoning why people are so angry about it is that Hirokoshi literally created a very wonderful and great character and is killing them off early. Which, I mean, that is great and bad. Bad because we won't be able to see this great character throughout the story. Hint, hint, maybe we will. And then second, she's just a really good character and I just really liked her. But I mean, hey, it takes real skill to create a character in 4 to 5 chapters and make your entire fan base fall in love with them. So at the very least, Hirokoshi, you have my seal of approval for what you have done. I don't appreciate it. I don't condone it, but you got the seal of approval. That's all that you need to know. So you have all for one in Shigaraki's body, reveling in the idea that he was able to finally get New Order and that this person is an idiot, and how he thinks to himself that Kathleen Bates only had one of 2 options in that moment, either A, save her body, or B, save her quirk, and because she chose her body that he has won. And he starts to remember the days where he was reading that comic with his brother Yoichi, and how when they were both reading the comics, how he wasn't really wanting to continue from a certain point, and how he just stopped reading, which is most likely the point where the villains won. And this is very important because at this moment he's planning on using New Order, and I think that this is probably going to be somewhat symbolic of what's going to happen at the end of the story. How from All for One's perspective, the reasoning why he didn't want to read the rest of the book is because he didn't want to see the villains lose. So he stopped at the point where the villains won and said, all right, that's the end of the story. This is what I like. I'm not going to read towards the end, because most likely he thought that he didn't want to like the ending of it because the heroes are most likely going to win. But it's going to be very interesting because that could be foreshadowing for what's going to happen at the end of this entire story of My Hero Academia. Most likely the heroes are going to win, but they may win in the same way that the heroes won in this comic book. We don't know how they won. Most likely, hopefully we can get a little bit more foreshadowing before the actual end of the story, but I'm going to make a slight prediction that most likely this story is going to end the exact same way as in that comic, and most likely what happens in that comic is that the heroes win not by just beating down the villain, but most likely working together with the other heroes to take down the villain, if not with action, but with words, and by taking away the villain's hatred. Because All for One has been hampering this idea that Shigaraki should grow his hatred and continue to hate so his power will grow. What would be ironic is at the end of that story that he stopped at, that the villain loses because the heroes are able to get rid of his hate. So that would be a very interesting idea if that were to occur, and it would just hammer in the irony and the symbolism of All for One and its downfall being his own arrogance, being his own self that leads to his own downfall. So yeah, that's just kind of a slight tangent that I want to go on. Let's get right back into the chapter where, once again, All for One is planning on using New Order on the atmosphere, and before he's able to use it, as we see the New Order quirk being sucked into his hand, Star and Stripe versus Shigaraki and All for One inside the Vestige world? You're supposed to be dead, Star. What are you doing here? Yeah, here's where the chapter takes a major twist, because at the moment that we see that Star and Stripe is inside of the quirk of Shigaraki, we see Shigaraki, once again, Hirokoshi, just drawing this grotesque, horrible face. His skin is bubbling up, and he's basically exploding from the inside out, as we see like part of his body, part of his arms and legs just breaking apart, as you just have this realization of what's happening, as we have like the pilots thinking like Tomoe Shigaraki is breaking apart, as you have the person himself, Shigaraki, just thinking like, what's happening to my quirks? It feels like they're eating themselves around the inside out. What is going on? And we get the reveal that what Kathleen Bates did is that she placed a new rule on New Order, which is that New Order will revolt against the other quirks, as we get this image of this Star and Stripe figure literally ripping into All for One, taking out the quirks, and from what we're seeing, attempting to destroy them, as you have All For One just thinking, oh, she didn't just do that, which at this moment is probably the most emotion that we've ever seen on All For One's face throughout the entire story. Why? Because he's not really smiling, and frankly, if you can get All For One to stop smiling, you're great in my book. Where we have Star and Stripe thinking to herself that the worst case scenario is that her quirk gets stolen, and how if it's between defending her body and saving her life and defeating All For One, that the choice is pretty much obvious, and that she's pretty okay what's happening, as in her most likely last moments, she's thanking everyone for what they've done. And even at this moment, the pilots are realizing what is happening and that they're planning on taking action, as you have Shigaraki, All For One, coming to this moment that, oh, the quirks are going against me. They're basically eating themselves. I don't have the ability to destroy quirks. I can only take and give. I need to give this quirk away. I need to give it to the pilots. But as he's thinking this, the pilots just keep bombarding him with lasers. And as this is happening, he's like, no, this can't happen. I can't sustain these lasers. Dang it, Star, your sacrifice won't be in vain coming from the pilots. As you have All For One Shigaraki just thinking, okay, I have to figure a way out of this. Oh, wait, I have Reflect. I can reflect these lasers. Oh, she's destroying the Reflect quirk. Oh no, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Oh, am I gonna lose? That is what I'm imagining what's going through All For One's head, but we actually don't see that. But what we do see is, once again, emphasizing the fact that Star and Stripe is dead, as she's monologuing to herself about how, because All Might saved her, that she was able to live this wonderful dream, which is pretty much to be a hero. As we see that she's saluting her fellow pilots, she's like, All Might, this is my way of paying you back. And as this is all happening, you just have Shigaraki, All For One, trying to get out of this barrage of lasers, calling out All Might's ghost, as we enter the end of this chapter, as we see a Nomu heading to the location of All For One. Oh no, I think I know where this is going. And that's a theory for another day. But yes, overall, when it comes to this chapter of My Hero Academia, I thought it was a really alright chapter. Obviously, I think the fact that Horikoshi has killed Star and Stripe and, you know, has done this to Lady Nagant to a lesser degree, but still, the fact that we won't be able to see any more of these characters in how they are right now is pretty sad, because I really did like Star and Stripe as a character. But I still have to give Horikoshi his props that even this late in the game, he's able to introduce a brand new character that we can fall in love with within a short amount of time. And I think that actually takes a lot more skill than having a character being written throughout the entire story, because you have to make sure that your audience is able to attach to them within this short amount of time. And I think Horikoshi does a fairly good job at doing that when it comes to his characterization of these characters, having them develop in a short amount of time and leaving a lasting impact on the story. Because even though we won't see Star and Stripe in her physical form, I have a prediction that most likely we're going to see Star and Stripe return to the story via the Nomu, because we do see that she still lives on within the quirk of New Order, which is something that we have to remember, that quirks hold the consciousness of the users at the moment that they are passed on. That is something that we learned from All For One. So technically, if you have a quirk, you in theory can't die, but you can only really survive if All For One is able to take you and put you into a new body, as we saw with Shirakumo, who technically still lives on through Kurogiri. And if that can happen to an individual that died like 20 years ago, as well as we've seen the vestiges of One For All still surviving, most likely decades after they have died, Star and Stripe, Kathleen Bates, if she goes into the Nomu and destroys all the quirks within the Nomu, what if she's the last quirk standing? Her consciousness may just reside in the quirk, and it may take over the body. So we could, in theory, get New Order returned to the story in a lesser form, because I'm pretty sure these near high-end Nomus, they're missing the one basic thing that like we as humans could do for the most part. Oh yeah, sort of kind of like speak and understand. So it is a possibility. But overall, still really enjoyed the chapter. Thought that just seeing how Star and Stripe looks in the Vestige world, it's just monstrous. Just the different panels of just showing the quirks literally eating at Shigaraki. Yeah, if someone said that Horikoshi really wanted to draw horror, this chapter and last chapter pretty much confirms it. So yeah, as well as we get a nice send-off to at least Star and Stripe's body, showing that it may be the death of the person, but her quirk will still, in theory, live on, so she can still play a part in the story later on. So hopefully this won't be the complete end of her. We may see a little bit more of her. We just have to wait to find out. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter for now. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, why don't you leave a like on this video if you also liked it, because I try to do these reviews, I try to make them entertaining, I also try to make them relatively informative, as well as give my opinions on what's going on in this chapter and how I felt. So if that's something that you're interested in, once again, subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave a like down below, and leave a comment down below on what do you think of Star and Stripe. Do you think that it was worth it to have her with just these 4 chapters? Would you have liked to have seen her a little bit sooner and dived into who she was a little bit earlier, or do you think that she's just useless to the story and that she shouldn't exist? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below, leave a like on the video if you liked it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!